brothers. This is Justin with Masonic Improvement, joined with my co-host, Mr. Ratworshful Dennis Yates.
Yeah, you got to get that right now. There's no playing around anymore.
He's always
Friends
right.
and brothers, we're friends and brothers. We are so excited tonight. We have been waiting for this one for a long time. Well, first of all, I want to announce real quick our new season going into this talk is building a better brotherhood. Instead of debating these topics that we debate so often, we're going to start working on what we can do to help you build a better brotherhood in your experience. So without further ado, I'm excited, stoked, happy, a little disappointed that I don't have the same hair. We are introducing our one of our favorite orators of all time, Rhit Moore. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm glad to be here, guys. How are y'all?
I'm outstanding, and I'm very excited to have you here as well. I got to tell you, I heard a lot of orators last year, but you were definitely the grandest orator that I've heard.
Man, I soaked up every ounce of fun you can have out of that gig as possible.
I could tell.
Absolutely.
I could tell.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's probably the best one to have, because you get to go up there and you don't have to tell anybody what you're going to talk about. You just get to go up there and take the stage. That's
Exactly.
That's probably
No, it was a blast. And the letter that I traveled around with, which we'll talk about that on another show because it deserves its whole show. But I put over almost 13,000 miles on the car just with that presentation alone. Mm-hmm. And I'd just call lodges and I'd be like, hey, I'm your grand order this year. You mind if I come give a talk? And they'd be like, yes, we'd love to host you. They didn't care who I was, but the grand order was. So I took full advantage of that. It was so much fun.
Well, I know.
Well, we know who you are.
Yes. I know when you came to Hillsborough and presented that letter, I had heard it several times before, and it still puts goosebumps. Like I just had goosebumps just hearing it.
That was a special moment, like when we went to Anchor Lodge. That was awesome.
Yes.
God bless America. That was awesome.
That was a fun trip.
Yeah,
we were all a little sleep deprived and delirious by the time we all got home, but it was a good time.
So I do have to tell you this about it, because I could talk about the letter all night, but Sam Givens just texted me the other day. He's the one that put it in my hands that visited you guys years ago. Mm-hmm. This letter's on display at Grand Lodge in the museum. It's been there since like 57. We had no idea it was even there.
What?
Yeah, exactly. So Sam, awesome. Just something guided him to it, because he said he's been walking past it ever since he's a Mason. I've been through that museum many times and never seen it.
I go I check it out every time I go to Grand Lodge. I just walk to the museum.
I've never seen the picture. I'll send you the picture. It's crazy, hidden in plain sight right there. So awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah, that story just keeps getting better and better.
Yes, it's a rabbit hole. It just keeps expanding the more you dig into it.
Yep.
Rhit, I just want to just go on record, because I don't know that I ever told you. I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but before we really get started, Masonic Improvement came about because of your podcast, the Fort Worth 148. It is what inspired me to step up and start doing all this. So it's a huge honor to have you.
Well, I certainly appreciate that, and I hope you're having fun doing it. It's funny because I'm like right in front of where the podcast started when I did it by myself. I just like read orations that Jewel Lightfoot did and everything, but it was in my closet because it's the only place I could get good acoustics, with the closet. So I'm right in front of it right now.
Nice.
Very cool. And I also feel the same way. I was listening to all these podcasts all the time, and I really enjoyed yours. And you need to go back. No,
dude,
just kidding.
It's coming. So
I like the guys over 148. I'm just teasing. I still listen to them, but I really miss you being on there. We really, Justin's right. We listened to you, and we were inspired by you. And I wanted to do it forever also, but I never did because I didn't want to compete with you and Justin. And then there's three of us out there, and then So Justin asked, and I was like, yes, cool.
As if there's not enough topics to talk about. But
Right.
we're actually, because we've had a lot of guys that are interested in the podcast, but we are fixing to do a lot of new things with kind of break the host up. And we have some great ideas, because I went last year when I went on my sabbatical as orator, I heard so many great stories out there, different varieties, so we're going to have kind of like a show will have its own niche, and we're going to bust each other up, but some cool things coming down the pipe. But I'm going back because I miss it for sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, I'm excited to hear what comes out.
Yeah, me too.
So Rhit, let's just jump right into the questions, and we'll see where the conversation goes.
Fire away.
Tell us a little bit about your Masonic background.
Let's see. Raised June 2004. And I got raised because Dad was like, you'll love it. And he was raised like 3 years before me. And my cousin, Sonny Marchbanks, he just happened to go up to Lodge. He got interested in it. He was doing genealogy, I think is what inspired him. And it was very prevalent in my family. My great-grandfather was. My grandfather had been initiated on my mom's side, but never went through. And then my grandfather on my dad's side was raised at Deer Creek, there where we study all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, that was his home lodge. And I had uncles that were raised at Arlington 438 and the 60. I mean, all over the state. Uncles out in West Texas. So it was very prevalent, but I had no idea. They were all quiet about it. But Dad was like, you're going to love it, because my dad's a little more on the mystical side of things.
I see.
Yes. So when he went through Masonry, he's like, they're doing rituals up there, man. But I had no idea what I was getting into. And it's one of those pictures that I love to, how do I want to say it? I love to hate to look at it. It's a picture of me and my brother. We went through our fellowcraft degree and we're both in cargo shorts. And it's just emblematical of how I had no idea what I was going through. But man, it was a roller coaster ride ever since that, because there was some turmoil in my lodge, as most have it. And I didn't come for about a year. I was like, this isn't for me. Same as my older brother. He never came back. But, my dad made us both stewards when he was master of 148. And I don't know. I just I got into the whole steward position. Yeah. Granted, the first meal I made, I burned spaghetti, the noodles, boiling noodles. So, awesome. And it was horrible. If you burn just 3 or 4 noodles on the bottom, it ruins the whole pot. I come to find out. So it was, it's been a learning experience ever since, because now I can make a mean pot of spaghetti, as well as, do some ritual work. That's been a great ride ever since.
It's funny you mentioned the shorts. I was thinking back when I first went through, shorts and flip flops, and in meetings, but it wasn't. No one said a word about it, and I didn't know any better. I didn't really. It shows how much we've grown as Masons and as men since we were initiated.
And I keep that picture in my little box because it reminds me too, that little thing we teach about, what is it? Internal, something like that, external thing. How important that is, because we don't know what that guy's been through that just walked in some ratty outfit that we're like, I would never don the doors with that. Well, I did, it was just unbeknownst. And as soon as I realized, I don't know that I realized as much as I made Masonry special for me. I felt, I don't want to say obligated to dress up. I just felt better when I did.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
And I didn't do that for anybody else. I didn't do that for nobody else.
I remember a few years ago, there was a picture going around of, I guess they did like several EAs or whatnot, and they're wearing like jeans with holes in them and shorts and stuff like that. And they kind of got some flack, and I don't blame any candidate for wearing shorts to lodge. Yeah, it's the failure of the lodge to really set any kind of expectations.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not like it happened yesterday either. And my thing is that here we have a moment to celebrate something successful in the craft, and they post a picture, and we're going to nail them for either, and it just to the wall for wearing something that we wouldn't wear, or, oh, you can't post a picture here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, because there is private messaging, and there's, again, something about private whispering stuff to brothers when they need help. But God, Facebook has just gotten out of hand with that.
Yeah.
I never seem to get the private stuff. Everybody feels everything I do out in the public.
Dude,
I get it all.
They're so
but
quick
then
to
I
throw.
ask for it a lot of times too, and I really shouldn't. But you know,
there's a difference between real discourse between brothers, because you don't have to agree with me, and you can be forceful in your argument, you know, but be tactful, you know. And some of this just,
and I think most people see that from me, so I don't worry about it so much.
What, being tactful?
hey. They understand my passion and my love for Freemasonry. And that's something, you know, that you bring up a great point, that I love our fraternity so much. I hold it in such reverence that I really enjoy dressing up for it. I like being my best, bringing my best, making it an honorable experience. And it really is kind of, it really is kind of wrong for me to badger somebody that doesn't have that same feeling yet. Yeah. They may be early in their years and just don't have that, or aren't in that lodge that makes them feel that way.
And they hadn't been initiated into that part of Masonry yet.
Yes. So it does, you know, it is something that I have to be patient and be more understanding in that manner. That's for sure. That's for sure. I do push it a lot, but I do think we need to hold a higher standard.
Oh,
but I think that me personally, I shouldn't, you know, downplay what people are trying to do as they do it, I guess.
Yeah.
No. Because you hit a trigger word of mine with standards. You're absolutely right. But we're taught how to hold those standards, you know, whispering good counsel, you know, all those things that we have, you know, praying for each other, that we have built into our rituals that teach us how to, you know, teach each other how to be better and remind each other how to be better. So, you know, when it's tactful and it's coming from a place of love, that's great. But we also have to realize it's really hard to accept that stuff too. Yeah. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I wish you wouldn't wear that to lodge, because it's so embarrassing and hard to accept that you were wrong, you know?
Right.
I personally will never criticize anybody for what they wear to lodge. Mm-hmm. However, I believe in like positive reinforcement. And so, for example, after the, I'm trying not to sneeze, so excuse me if I make funny faces, but after the quarantine was lifted, we had probably like, I think it was like 5 guys that were just, I mean, they were ready. They had practiced, they'd turned in their work, and they were ready to receive their master's degree. And so we raised like 4 or 5 guys right after the lockdown was over. And my point that I'm getting at was these guys all wear at least jackets. Some of them dress nicer than I do to lodge. And the reason for that was I don't want to take all the credit for it, but it was me. I wore a suit to lodge.
But you will.
Yeah, but I will, right? I wore a suit to lodge, and I impressed the importance of dressing to respect the lodge, because they asked me why I always did that, and I said I'm dressing to give the fraternity the respect that I think it warrants. And they all dress nice. They always, every time. It might be jeans, but there's always like a dress jacket or something with it. And that just goes to show you can enforce standards and give positive reinforcement without pointing fingers and criticizing. Because some of them, I mean, once or twice they might come in right out of work, and I understand that. I'm just glad they're there. But I'm never going to turn away a visitor or anybody because I don't think he's dressed right or something.
No. The only way it would happen is if it were some kind of occasion that would require it. But that's where you let them know. You know what I mean? Hey, there's a dress code or whatever. But I love to use our degree team as an example, because years ago when my grandfather passed away, we the brothers from the lodge helped me with the degree, and we all wore black suits with black ties and black shirts.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
we were like, oh my gosh, this looks wonderful. This is what we should wear for degrees. So there was 3 or 4 of us that started doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now the candidates and everybody else, like for their fellow craft degree, they'll show up in all black. You know what I mean?
Nice.
They'll ask, is that the uniform we're supposed to wear? It's like, no, if you want to wear it, great. And we've come to the point to where we encourage it. If you're going to work in the degree, wear all black. But man, it looks so good. White aprons, black suits, the lights are dim. Because you can't really see anybody's face, there's shadows, and it's just all you see is those white aprons and black suits and the hat. Yeah,
I think a lot of guys want to dress nice. They want a reason to dress nice, but they don't want to be the only one showing up in a suit and tie. They don't want to stand out. I think it's the same reason a lot of them won't wear their aprons that they're given. Just because we're given an apron to wear, right? But no one else does. So they don't want to they don't want to be that odd man out.
Yeah. And I take your point that guys want to dress nice. You know what I mean? Because I kind of feel that way. But I take it a step further that they want to be convinced to dress nice.
Yeah.
Because it took me a long time to come to that point. And I'll still, wear jeans on a night that I probably shouldn't have wore jeans, just because I have to get up there and remind myself, why I do dress nice for that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But
I kind of encouraged it through my officers. When I became master of the lodge, I asked everyone, okay, if you're going to be an officer, I want you to dress like you care about what we're doing. I'd like to do a suit and tie. Now, of course, Scott McMahon, if anybody knows Scott McMahon, he's my best friend and arch enemy up at lodge. And so he was my senior warden, and he refused to wear a jacket. But everybody else did, but he refused. And now he won't go to lodge without a jacket. It makes me so mad. But really though, now, I showed up and I was the only one that would wear a jacket and tie, unless Grand Lodge came down. Everybody dresses up for Grand Lodge. What's interesting is they know what's appropriate when Grand Lodge is coming, but they don't think about it when they're not there. So
I don't know, man. Once Grand Lodge comes around the corner, the conversation of appropriate dress comes up, and you inevitably see that quote that we all know from the EA charge that just pops up as justification for not wearing something nice.
Well, down in Goliad, and we're the king of blue jeans. Blue jeans and boots is our normal attire, and so eventually. Now I'll go at any given time, and so that I can stand out, I have to wear a bow tie so I look better, because everybody else is wearing jackets and ties now. So I had to step up my game. They forced me to step up my game. But no, it's true that you can build up just by showing it's okay.
Yeah.
Some of the guys that wouldn't normally dress like that, they started dressing like that. My junior warden is he wears a 3-piece suit and he looks sharp every time.
Nice.
I'm saving a bow tie just for him, buddy. He's got a nice gold one coming.
So does it say anything that I'm in my flannel and Shrew Farm shirt for this podcast?
Yeah,
well,
go ahead, Dennis.
I won't show you my belt.
Please don't.
Yeah.
I don't care what you're wearing. I'll do masonry with you. You know what I mean? I do want to definitely be clear, and I know we all feel that.
Yeah,
way.
we do the same. Yeah, I mean,
you two are elitists. You guys are elitists.
Before y'all paint me into a corner, I know we're sitting here holding the third rail this whole time. Like, what's the next question, Justin?
Well, I can tell you, it made me sick. I'm sitting there. I'm cutting my hair for Grand Lodge and looking all good, and I show up all sharp and clean and cut, and I look over and Rhit's got long hair, and I'm thinking, are you kidding me? No, he's Grand Order. He can't do that to me, because I was growing out my hair pretty good, and I decided, no, I need to go ahead and cut it and start looking.
Corey
for my
cut
age.
his too. You guys all abandoned me.
And
I know.
We're all clean cut now. What's up with that?
It's not like we've got ambitions or something. I don't know.
Somebody's got to put pepper in this salt factory.
That's right. That's right.
So, Rhit, I wanna ask you. You talked a bit about why you joined Freemasonry, but I really want to know, how did the reality of Freemasonry actually compare with your expectations once you got in?
Like I said, I left for a year.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of those things that it took a while to really sink in that how big Freemasonry actually was. You know, it was to realize that it was something much bigger than just a social club that it kind of had, you know, developed into at that time, because I joined in the early 2000s. And once I did, I realized, you know, if guys like me leave because, you know, I can't be a certain then that organization will go away. And it had been in my family so long, and it was like, you know, it fit me. And it was like, I'm just gonna dig in. And like I said, when I started getting the master's wages, if you will, from the steward's position, because there's nothing better than actually cooking a good meal and brothers liking it, you know, and patting you on the back for that. It's so true. There's no faster way to a man's heart than through his stomach. So, you know, I became a hero very early on before I ever was installed in anything, you know, but steward, because I could cook a good meal. And I learned that. I was decent, but I became much better. So I'm going to chalk that up to Freemasonry as well, because now I'm a mean cook.
You know, when you start off with burnt spaghetti, you can only get better.
Dude, that's it. Scrape the bottom of the barrel the first thing. Just wash those pink and red and whites together first thing.
See, that wasn't an accident. That was a tactic.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Dang it. Interview over.
I see through you.
Exactly. I was pretty lucky. I actually had he was an executive chef. He was my junior steward when I was senior steward. So I didn't have to do anything. He ordered everything, made everything, prepped it, cooked it, and I just stood there and looked pretty. So
as you should, unless you have a brother that's really going to cook a good meal, you should order a good meal. You know?
Yes, I agree.
A good meal, definitely. But you know, then Freemasonry just started paying dividends, because again, there was still drama going on at my lodge. So when I did come back and I was like, yeah, I'm loving this. Well, there was 30 plus lodges in Tarrant County. So I would go to different lodges for a few months, you know, long enough to get to know guys. And then as soon as they would start kind of communicating drama and, hey, join this lodge, I just go to the next one. And whatever their floor schools were, I was showing up, you know, because I just got lost in the ritual. And stayed away from the drama, and then, you know, went from senior deacon to senior warden, and it's been breakneck speed ever since then.
What's wild about these dividends that you mentioned is that, and you can both attest to this, is they grow so much it almost gets out of control.
Oh, dude!
Like there. I don't know. I don't have. There's so much going on Masonically that it's really crazy, especially when you start getting involved with more things. It's just amazing how fast your schedule can fill up.
Yeah, and the feeling is intoxicating when you're involved in something that's surreal, you know, like a good degree that you can tell changes a guy. Or, I mean, like this weekend in Laredo, when they threw a party to raise money for this transportation fund. Yeah, man, dude, it was wicked awesome. And you know, you just think to yourself, I would have had none of these experiences if you took Freemasonry out of my life. And it's like, it's a scary thought. You know, it's a scary thought. It's like, man, I can't encourage guys enough to get involved, because there's no way I could describe all the doors and windows and everything else that's been opened up.
Yes.
You know, to make life more fulfilling for me, that wouldn't have been there.
I've wondered before what kind of man I would be if I had never joined, and I don't much care for the possibility of what I would be like without it.
Yeah, no, and take this for example. You know, this is not going to move in the grand scheme of things. It's not going to move the needle, you know, that much in the way of making the world better, but it is going to move the needle. I was just watching Netflix, and that wasn't moving no needle nowhere. So, I mean, Freemasonry gave the three of us this opportunity, and it's just like, I wish more guys realize the opportunities they have, because I didn't get permission to start anything. I know you guys didn't get any sanction from anywhere. You just.
I'd rather ask for forgiveness than permission.
Well, I got smacked on the back of the head. That's what I got.
I've been in trouble a few times, but you just be smart. You typically can keep yourself out of trouble.
Yeah, or if you just have a really good editor, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I
have editors in all areas of my life. I have editors that they're my bubble wrap. They protect me from bumping into sharp edges.
No,
I do
a few times.
I also want to add that your story is a lot like mine. I first joined in 2005, and I also left for about a year and a half or so. And I like the way you put it. You said you realized that Freemasonry was bigger than your first impression. Yeah, and that's very true. Especially out in like rural lodges, I can never get that word right, but out in the country, it's a very small taste of the big picture.
Yeah. Yes.
And rural Freemasonry is often very different than it is in larger towns. So,
often, usually,
always,
man. Well, and that's another thing, man. If you don't travel this state, because I went from one corner to the other as orator last year, having a blast. And Freemasonry in El Paso or Midland and all those, but I'm not saying they do different work, but it's just a different style than Nacogdoches, Texas.
Yeah,
and
they
that's
all
a
have
beautiful
a different
thing.
Dynamic. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a beautiful thing, and different opportunities, and because I think about the small towns that are just like, woe is me. We don't have all the numbers for guys joining, but I've seen lodges out in the middle of nowhere, West Texas, that were making huge waves in their community. There's just 4 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And but yet they were getting commended by the mayor at one lodge that I went to for some work they did with the homeless. It was like phenomenal.
Look at Chalk Mountain, out in the middle of nowhere. There's no reason it should. Literally, and there's no reason that this lodge should be thriving like it does. But they do something unique. It's a different experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't make it last weekend, but I heard it was standing room only. Like they had to bring chairs in, and the place was packed.
Yes.
So anyone that says like we can't get members because we're out in the country or whatever your excuses are just that. They're just excuses.
That's it. And if you literally can't, then it might be time to look for the closest lodge to hook up with and work with.
Yeah, exactly. If your lodge is dying and you're doing the exact same thing that the other dying lodges around you are doing, and frankly, in many cases, the same members and all these same dying lodges, it's time to either really drastically reconsider your approach to Freemasonry, do something to make it unique, or merge.
Yeah. Well, and I love the example that I ran into last year. The first thing I did as Grand Orator was give a speech about the Texas Rangers and Freemasonry, how their values kind of collide. And I did that at Rising Star Lodge down in Center Point, Texas. Another place, it's the middle of nowhere. It's west of San Antonio, about 45 minutes or so. It's not even a town, it's a village, and I think the population's like 22 or something. It's a very small town, and for all purposes, this lodge should not exist. But they a few years ago redubbed themselves as the unofficial, if you will, Texas Ranger degree team, to where a couple of guys came together. They take the ritual very serious. They dress in like leather vest and white press shirts and starch jeans and boots.
Oh, very cool.
Like a Texas Ranger, modern day would dress. And they're the unofficial Texas Ranger degree team. Well, they had an unveiling of a mural, and I read this letter there and got to talking to these guys about how they've grown this lodge. Guys joining all over the state because of what they're doing to preserve the heritage. Their first 36 years were Texas Rangers served as master. So they kind of, are the Texas Ranger Lodge for them. But they've created that culture. and they rally around it. They've got a mural out front that's beautiful. It is, and if a lodge in that small a town can have that kind of success, you're not going to convince me that anyone can.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The community that I used to live in, Whitney, Texas, small town, like 1,200 people. And they had 2 lodges when I first moved out there. And the first was the Whitney Lodge that had been there for like 150 years. And the second one was Anadarko. And so this lodge was formed some time ago at like one of the forts that was on the Brazos.
Yeah.
And it didn't take, that was, they had kind of a shotgun approach back in the day where you just form a lodge and if it takes, it takes. And this one didn't. So they reinstated it back in Whitney as a like a historical observation lodge. So it was lamplight and they'd give historical presentations. And you had people from all over the state that originally came around and attended, and they just stopped the practice altogether. And it was just another lodge doing steady meetings in a town of 1,200 people with the same members in most cases. So it demised. It ended up merging with Whitney. But my point is, when it was doing something different and unique, it could absolutely survive and thrive. Yeah. Even though there was already another lodge in that community, because they were offering something that you couldn't get anywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and my eyes were open to that, because our lodge 148 and Tarrant 942 were 2 of the largest lodges in North America at one point.
Wow.
Yet everybody that worked at the I forget the name of the meat packing company in Fort Worth now. God bless it. I'm a horrible Fort Worthian. Anyway, they all joined Tarrant Lodge.
Yes, you are.
They joined Tarrant Lodge, and then city folk and businessmen joined Fort Worth 148, and there was that built-in culture, to where like it's come up before about university lodges. And it's like, oh, that's a horrible idea. That time anybody should be able to join any lodge, but there's something about that niche. Midlothian Lodge used to be known. If you're law enforcement, you go join Midlothian Lodge. Every one of them at one point, were years and years ago, and it was okay to be that. Not that it was official. Yeah, it just human nature works that way.
Rhit, what would you say the strengths and weaknesses are of Texas Freemasonry right now?
Oh, man, that's such a good one. And you usually have an answer for that locked and loaded, because we ask that on our show all the time. But, traveling the state now, I firmly believe one of the biggest strengths we have is the diversity and the assets and resources we have, because we have been in this mode of the sky's falling for decades. I mean, ever since the late 60s, membership's been declining, but we really didn't get into panic mode until the late 90s, I guess. And ever since I've been a Mason, that's been the main priority, is membership. And we've kind of overlooked our resources because we think they're dwindling. Yeah. Well, maybe the numbers getting smaller, but man, it doesn't take a whole lot to do stuff, to make things happen. So we have manpower across the state that's phenomenal. We just got to rally it. But the real estate too, my gosh, I'm in the Temple downtown Fort Worth. It's one of the most awesome buildings in the state of Texas. But you think about San Antonio Cathedral.
Yeah, second only to San Antonio. I mean, really?
Yeah. And now Dallas is legit too. Dallas is legit too.
It is. I love that.
If you take
look,
I heard that there's a big problem with the one in Dallas, though. It's in Dallas.
What? That you haven't? Oh my God!
You're gonna get me in trouble.
You gotta.
I laughed too hard at that. But like
that's okay. I grew up there and I left too. So
that's it. Masonicon is something that it was really inspired partly by that temple being used for nothing for Blue Lodge. The Shrine and Scottish Rite use it and need it for what they do. But the Blue Lodge, here we have this huge facility, and it was like, what are we doing with it? And it's like, we get a free weekend there. So it's like, all right, we're going to throw a conference. And that's when the Masonicon thing out of Ezekiel Bates had happened. So we just ran with that idea. It's, the branding of it's genius because everybody knows of Comic-Con or whatever con out there.
Right.
But our Grand Lodge, we have air conditioning now. Why aren't we throwing a big party in August out there? You know, some kind of fundraiser with a gala at night, but a big conference during the day or something. I don't know. You know, there's a lot of ideas because I think music festival too.
Yeah.
We got some very talented musicians in this fraternity.
I tell you what, Rhit, when you become Grand Master, if you'll make me Grand Marshal, then I'll make you Grand Marshal when I'm Grand Master, and we can make sure that
we could do that.
Should I edit this politicking out of the final cut?
Well, don't worry. That's this will happen on my
part. That's just the comedy hour.
I'll leave it. I got too much fun doing my own thing. Grandmaster's got a schedule to keep. You know, I do not envy that man.
And
he has to go through so much.
Talk about the Grand Lodge. Like within the last 16 years, we went, because I remember when I first went, like no AC, and paper ballots for everything. Yeah, we've come a long way.
Yes,
it's nice to be able to sit in Grand Lodge and not sweat and be able just to click your vote, and not sit through the voting process.
And that might be our weakness right there, is the slow resistance to. I don't want to use this C word.
Oh man.
Well, it's
updating our systems,
right?
Because we're not changing anything. We're not changing. If we use a computer to keep our records, we're still keeping records like we always have. So we're not changing that. We're just retooling it. If we put air conditioning in our building or use electronic voting, we're still doing it the right way. Democracy still reigns. We've just revamped the system. You know, it's like still mixing our own concrete when you can go down and buy sackcrete, for nothing. It makes no sense that we're not keeping up with these no-brainer kind of things.
And what's funny?
Well, I don't want to use a jackhammer for my mall.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No. But what's funny is for an organization that dislikes innovation so much. Historically, we were the most innovative organization out there with the most innovative people as members.
Look at our architecture. We didn't build your run of the mill stuff,
Yes. And it was not cheap.
Yeah.
Freemasonry was not cheap.
We look at those lamp slides. I'm sure you've all seen them on the big wooden deals, not the 50 slides.
Yes. We had them. Yes.
And that was cutting edge technology back in the day. I mean,
yes.
Steve Jobs' grandfather introduced them, I think.
And you know what? And you know what's so beautiful about this moment right now that we're in is that we've got a bunch of guys that are really starting to rethink Freemasonry and not rethink it in the way as taking it away, but rethinking like you're talking about, Rhit, and you're talking about, Justin, where we're thinking we need to be more intelligent about our movements, more deliberate with our actions. And I think we're in a period right now to where the quality is finally surpassing the quantity factor.
Well,
we've been, like you said, we've been worried about membership for so long. And sure, I'm very grateful for our mentor generation keeping it going for us. I am. There's no doubt about it. And I love talking with the brothers. In fact, you're talking about Deer Creek. I was talking to a brother, Robert Bratcher from Deer Creek this afternoon. I would have never met the man if it wasn't for Masonry. And he's over in Houston, and we're talking about how he was part of the one of the first charter members of when they did the shrine years ago, and all this other stuff, and it's so awesome. And so I truly appreciate what they have to teach us as mentors, but it is time for them to mentor us and let us take some ownership and build the knowledge of today that we have available to us. So
Yeah.
I think that we're in a unique position to be able to do that.
I want to touch really quickly on the PowerPoints and the like we were talking about earlier. I was talking to a brother, and I won't name names because I don't want anyone to get in trouble. But he just was thinking out loud to me, and he was like, "Why couldn't we get like a VR headset and program like certain parts of the fellowcraft or maybe the lectures where you're actually." No, it wasn't you. It was. I said it was a good idea, Dennis.
I'm not taking any blame for this.
But I saw your face, Rhit. But is it really so different than like a PowerPoint presentation or anything like that? It's
there's no law against that.
It's taking technology and implementing it.
Yeah, you might get counted off on a graded degree. That's what they always say. You can't dim the lights. That's not a graded degree.
Right. But it's all about the candidate.
It is. And I was going to say to your point too, Dennis, the difference is I know from when I've joined, it's been membership. There's been a lot of that. Of course, that's the main focusing drive, but there's also been infighting on what Freemasonry is, whether it's an organization about charity or it's an organization about education and, freedom of thought, and thinkers and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And we have finally shut up. The Gen Xers and millennials have finally shut up and went to work. And now the older generation actually has somebody to mentor because in all honesty, we were being babies for a while. And we have to own up to that part of our, as a generation, we have to own up to that part because no generation is going to give up authority and power easy. And I'm
right.
Particularly when a generation, because the Xers didn't join.
Yes.
So the boomers, they held everything together for a long time when things look.
That's because the boomers treated us so badly as adults.
Oh, Dennis.
So, but I'm the love child of two boomers, and
please don't go into details on that.
Picture that. Don't picture that.
But these guys held the lodges together, and so they're going to be more reluctant than previous generations to really hand things over. And you're absolutely right, Ray. I mean, we came in and said, "Hey, we don't want to do." From my perspective, I was like, I don't want to do fundraising. Let's do education, dress nice, and increase our dues. And you can't just charge in like that. You have to play the game.
No, you do. And to think that what the struggle between our generation and the older is something new. This is nothing new under the sun. I had a past master from the silent generation talk about his pulling the gavel from the greatest generation. When he was a young man and became worshipful master, and he literally dared me. He said, now it's your turn to pull the gavel from my hand, telling me it wasn't going to come easy. And as a young Mason, I kind of felt threatened by it. I was like, oh my God, he's like threatening, but he was actually mentoring me and telling me, get off your butt and do something and take this gavel out of my hand, because they didn't go rip it out. They did things and took Masonry into the future. They earned it. And what they had to offer as the new generation.
And of course they witnessed the biggest decline in Masonic history, of course. And so, that would be real scary giving it to somebody else, when you're sitting there watching Freemasonry shrink as it is, and you're wondering, well, if I give it to them, are they just going to run it into the ground? I can understand that.
Here we come pointing fingers every which direction. Oh, well, here's the problem. Here's what you did, and here's what you didn't do, and here's what we need to do.
Okay, boomer. Whatever.
Exactly. And they're just going, shut up and go to work. And when we finally do, things, peace and harmony actually starts to prevail, which is, I feel, what's happening. There's a unique feel in the air, especially this year for Freemasonry. That's just, and maybe it has something to do with coming out of the pandemic, but things are not changing.
I don't think so. I think that this has been a long time coming, and it's been working its way to the surface, and it's just taken a little bit longer than what we had thought it would. But it's it's been a long time coming, and you're right, man. You can feel it in the air. It's almost like electricity when you walk into Grand Lodge now. You don't look at this group over here huddling, looking at this group over here and talking about.
Yeah,
it's a real fellowship.
What's
everybody is loving each other, and it is nice.
What's funny about the comment about Grand Lodge is I have heard comments from some, and again, not naming names, but there's some people that stated that this was the worst Grand Lodge they've ever been to. That was not my experience.
No.
I felt a very different energy, a very positive energy at Grand Lodge, and I think anyone that was hating on the Grand Lodge experience this year, they just don't like the direction things are going.
No, and I talked to some guys that said the same thing, and I understood the sentiment because what did we have? 37 resolutions and Grandmaster's decisions to go through.
Right.
And there were some parliamentary procedure nightmares that come up that are like once in a blue moon, and that happened multiple times. So it was like monkey wrench after monkey wrench, which normally Grandmasters might have to deal with one of those types of things.
Right.
So it was like a real unique Grand Lodge that it did have a clunky feel to it at a moment. I left Friday like, how are we ever going to get through all these?
Well, and that's how everybody felt. But the way that our Grand Master at the time, Ken Curry, pulled it off, he got through it. He was a pro, man.
Yeah. How can you say that was a bad session? Because
exactly. How
can
you love the biggest comeback of all time in Masonic history? I mean,
it's a good way to put it.
That's how I felt about it. It was a heroic story in my mind. That's kind of how I felt.
Fourth quarter comeback. It was.
Yeah.
Exactly.
A real hero's journey.
But
yes.
To each their own, whatever. I don't think anybody was attacking anybody about it because it was just a unique situation that Grandmaster was put through. And it's not the last time we'll see it, probably.
No.
Now, especially now that we're kind of feeling our oats, as younger men to submit resolutions,
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Even though sometimes you start out with one thought and it ends up being a whole different thought than you had planned. That's
the way it works, man.
So Rhit,
we
kind of touched on this. Where do you see our current course taking us in the next 10, 20, 30 years in Freemasonry?
So we're not done losing membership. We still haven't corrected that because we can talk about the feel in the air, all we want. And that, to me, that's just the beginning because all this, woo we were talking about is great because it feels better practicing Masonry now. You don't just feel like you're in the trenches all the time because you're doing it with your buddies. But we still got a ways to go. I mean, last year, I think 51%, we retained 51% of our EAs, which is the worst it's ever been in the history of our craft. The year before it was 54, so it's still dipping down. So we're not retaining men that we're bringing in. We're losing guys through non-payment of dues. And we know why that's happening. That's why we're doing what we're doing, to try to prevent that kind of stuff. So until we look and start remedying the holes we have for losing men going out of the fraternity and being honest about it, we got a ways to go. So I see us maybe getting down to around 45,000 before we really start tightening the belt and realizing, it's not Netflix. We can't blame this on Facebook, Sure.
It's easy to blame someone else or something else. That's the cop out.
And the bottom line is there's more for us to do. So we do have to step our game up a little bit. But
yes,
I don't care what you say. Men have always wanted to be challenged. They've always wanted to have that feeling of that rite of passage. That's like, okay, I'm in manhood now. I have the respect of men around me, and we don't really have a lot of that in America. So the A certificate for me was a big moment in that and changing into like, oh, okay, this is what responsibility feels like. It feels good, you know? So until we really start buckling that down on each other and holding those standards and holding each other accountable, we're not going to stop that bleeding. because
That's
men
why-
want to join.
Why do you think
Yeah.
the EA retention is so low?
Because we don't hold our standards.
Yeah.
End of story. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This guy bust his butt to learn the catechism from this guy that's dry, because my mentor was like 89 years old. God, he was the best man ever. Bless him. But when I was learning the work from him, it's like, well, what does that mean? He's like, next.
We don't do that
Yeah,
here.
right,
Yeah,
right.
Well, I'm not here to talk to. We're here to learn the work. Now, when I learned the work, I would discuss with him what it meant, and he was a very deep man, but not while I was memorizing it. But you bust your butt, and then you go turn in your proficiency, and you do it almost perfect, or pretty dang good, and then the senior warden doesn't know the answers to the questions.
Yep.
And this guy's going like, wait a minute. And that seems so insignificant. And it is, if that happened only every once in a while.
Yeah.
But then you move on to the next one. And in the master's degree, he hears the prompting and the whispering and the giggling, and nothing really seems to be the standard to challenge him. Because that's why I mentioned earlier, men don't want to dress nice. They want to be convinced to dress nice.
Yeah.
And men I don't want to go dig a ditch or memorize obligation unless you convince me it's important.
When I went through as master, I personally learned how to confer the degrees so I could do it as master. I could perform my job.
Yeah.
Why is it not important enough for people to do that? I'm so curious as to why, if somebody wants to be a leader, why don't they want to take the responsibility to lead?
That's the question we have to answer. And legislating that our way out of that problem is it seems the right thing to do, but it's not.
Right.
I mean, and this is Texas. So if you tell me to do it, I'm going to be like, wait a
I
minute.
know, exactly.
I got to do this?
Yes, exactly.
But the unforeseen advantage or positive of that is that it actually brought people to forums, but it's not solving the problem, nor will it.
I agree, but it tells people that they need to start caring about it.
Yeah.
To me, that's what it says.
Well, that's the problem, is that your mentality is 10% of Masons. Most of Masons see it as, you're in my business,
Right.
And Brian Dotson lit that.
That's not how we have it around here.
Yeah, because Brian Dotson said it, that takes the power out of the lodge's hands to choose who they want as a leader.
Right.
And
the lodge can choose whoever it wants as long as they know the word.
You're preaching to the choir. But I will forever be a hardcore libertarian on that. Educate, don't legislate. Because that law book destroys our lodge. It doesn't help it.
But this goes back to a point I wanted to make earlier, and that as an EA or a fellow or anyone going through the work, if you're sitting in a Masonic lodge and the worshipful master or any of the officers can't open a wet paper bag, let alone a Masonic lodge, then that really, what does that do to you as far as the importance of the work you're learning? Like if the senior warden can't even repeat the questions back, why do I have to give them back verbatim? And
it's not the thought that's going through his head consciously. It's happening subconsciously.
Right. Right.
With that little gavel just chipping away, but it's actually adding rough and superfluous parts of stone back.
And
it's keeping them from lodge.
And as a master mason, there's nothing. I mean, I don't read the minutes if you want to read the Grand Lodge communications. That's fine, but there's nothing more agonizing than sitting through a poor opening and closing.
Yeah,
I mean that just grinds my gears, for lack of a better term.
And I want to touch on this too, like before we get labeled as ritualist or something crazy, because
don't worry. Anybody who knows me knows that I take that equation out.
Yeah. Well, there's never going to be the perfect ritual. That's the bottom line. And
True.
I remember that, man. I was talking my mentor Sam Levacy, who taught me my work and much more. I didn't know the work, so I never knew he messed up, because he would just roll through it like he was, just never, like he never messed up.
Right.
And after years of studying with him and learning the work correctly and knowing it correctly, I could catch him on his mistakes. And it was like seeing Santa Claus. I swear to you, when you catch your mentor that you thought was impervious mess up in the ritual, it's like, oh my gosh,
yes,
that wasn't right. There's no that there.
Yeah.
Not that I would.
That's what I always.
But yes. It was one of those moments that you earn as a master, and you're like, hard work's paying off here.
Yeah. But the reason that I asked what years you guys went through, and this is the unpopular opinion, when I went through, and I know Rhit, for sure you as well, when we went through, you couldn't sit in lodge unless you're a master mason.
Yeah.
And so you didn't see any of the poor work. You didn't hear any of the
they
had
just started the EA when I joined.
And that was a huge benchmark for me to be able to sit in a Masonic lodge. Of course, that was also why I got so disappointed, because I worked so hard for it. But that's a whole other conversation. But that was a huge benchmark for me to work for that. And I sat out there with Tyler many nights at the stated meetings, going over the work. That's where I learned it. And so I'm not sitting here advocating going back to that, but there was definitely some advantages, because I didn't see any of that nonsense.
Yeah. And that's the things. There's nothing to stop a lodge from developing that culture. I'm not a fan of using stated meeting as a carrot, like, you're going to earn your way into stated meeting. Yeah. I love the idea of them being out studying, because that's really what they should be focused on. And there's not enough time for it anyway. But it could be, come on into stated meeting, but next week we have a meeting just for Master Masons. You can't come to that. Yeah. And actually do masonry in there, talk about something, or, not just read minutes.
Well, frankly, I mean, it's not a very good carrot anyway. It's more like a bait and switch. You're looking forward to it, and it's just a business meeting, right?
It is. And it has to be done. Make it as good and as short and sweet as you can, and get out of there and go to the watering hole or go eat or whatever. Go out in the back and smoke a cigar, and then move on. Because one of the big things we don't do as Masons is spend time as Masons. We're practicing for the next degree, doing a degree, working on work with a candidate, or doing stated meeting, or selling raffle tickets. Yeah. When do you ever sit down with your brothers and like, hey, we're going to have cigars and whatever. Yeah. And just talk about life. I mean, you take your pick. We can talk about the ball game.
And you hit on something important. If you're going to do a business meeting, you have to do business meetings. There's no way around it, but it doesn't have to be an hour-long business meeting, or I've sat in 2 hour-long business meetings.
No,
that's what you have committees for.
That's okay. Yeah, but 2 hours, you're just being obnoxious. At 2 hours, it's not right.
I'll tell you
we've talked about having well-rounded lodges, and we should have some kind of education in there, and some type of presentation or whatever. There should always be something other than just the business in a stated meeting, because it does get mundane. Yeah. And so there's no reason why you shouldn't break it up kind of in the middle with something fun to wake you up again, so you can get ready for the next part.
Well, here's the thing, and this is important to me. Education is important. However, if you're going to have a guest speaker, you need to really consolidate that business, because I've seen it, and I know there was no ill intentions by anybody, but if you're conducting a 45-minute business meeting, and then you have someone that's going to give a 15-minute presentation, and you do that at the very end, everyone's tuned out, and it makes for a long night.
No,
you need to really consolidate, expedite the business as fast as you can, and jump right into that education.
No. Well, and that goes to, because we used to do, and we still do it on occasion, Master Mason's Night, because I'm not a fan of doing education presentations at stated. We're there to do business. And if I have to shift gears and now it's like, okay, now we're doing education. We got to move from business. Let's knock the business meeting out, go fellowship, and come back next week, and let's do the education thing.
I see, and I see your point. And that's it's a beautiful gesture for the brother who is a member of one lodge. which more of us should be a member of just one lodge and give all of our time to that lodge. But
Calling me
like
out?
in our, you got the hand. You're on that side of the screen. So, but in our area, we've got so many brothers that are going to all these other lodges, trying to help them and keep them going. That we're spending all of our time, except, well, Goliad's pretty special because we have our floor school every Wednesday without fail. But other than that, you know, we're running around to all the other lodges trying to help out and whatnot. And so it takes a lot of our time, and we don't really have the time for the Masters Night, which I love. We had a history night in McKinney every Thursday night. It was a history night. And that was awesome.
The underlying point is work with what you got, because to say something
but
has to happen.
But
I
do see your point. Yeah. Yes, true. But we got to squeeze it in there somewhere.
Exactly.
Let's get it in there somewhere.
So make it work, you know, and that's what's got to happen. It's got to happen, you know, just do something, you know, do something.
Yeah. Don't just sit around complaining about it.
Yeah.
Don't be an Xer.
Jeez.
So I'm gonna make this T-shirt that says "Shut up, past master," because we were talking about before how the past master's always on the side, you know, button in the middle of degrees and stuff, and it's like "Shut up, past master." But I'm gonna make one now that says "Shut up, Xer, get to work."
Xer.
yeah, absolutely.
I'm a Gen Z. I like Sultan.
Oh my God.
Sultan.
Yeah, don't say that.
Gen Z, millennial, tomato.
right.
Man,
we're all the same.
Yeah. Well, this has been a really great conversation. I'd like to open up any comments either one of you might want to add before we wrap this up.
I'll let you go first.
Man, for me, it's always just get involved, you know, because that's the thing. As you know, you say, where do you start? Start learning the rituals, start a golf tournament round, whatever your niche is, get in there and start doing something and see where the fraternity leads you.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
I was just fine where I was in my corner of the world, you know, and then all of a sudden I'm traveling the States, speaking in front of the Alamo, and I still got to pinch myself about that. You know, as a 5th generation Texan, that's more than a dream come true. Because I didn't even know to dream that.
You're saying you will always remember the Alamo.
I do. Kidding me? You kidding me? Look, that day was supposed to be a placeholder because COVID we were still under wraps, you know, pretty much. They were kind of loosening things, but not really. And so the lady called for the Alamo, told most worshipful now, right worshipful Brad then said, if you don't do something here, you're going to lose your spot and you probably will never get it back. So Brad called me, said, hey, write something. We'll just go down there and do, you know, just be like 12 or 13 of us. Well, that Thursday, they lifted the restrictions and we get down there and it's like 10 or 12 of us and we start speaking. And next thing you know, there's 300 or 400 people gathered because they just let loose. So really my first official thing as Grand Orator, it was like baptized by fire.
Nice.
It was, I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
That has to be a wonderful experience.
Oh man. And you know, I can recall standing there getting my white apron as a master mason, you know, and they mentioned that purple, you know, on your shoulders, not that I'm there, but still the honors and adventures that I've been on as a Freemason. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, Laredo, Goliad, that was another one. Goliad's
I know.
I know you know,
and you did a great job. You did a great job.
I've always felt, and I still think it's true to an extent, that the saying that you get out of it what you put into it is a cop out, but it's also very true.
It's a law of nature.
Yes.
It's momentum. It's like that thing you're spinning it up, and all of a sudden it starts spitting stuff back out at you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the way things work.
Yeah.
I mean, package it how you will. But yeah, you get out of it what you put into it.
Dennis, you have 2 minutes.
It's not enough time. It's not enough time.
Give us the
So-
Cliff Note version.
Well, we may have to jump. into
Masonry
another
good,
section.
Goliad great. Thanks for coming.
Hey. You may have to add on to this because we didn't talk about why Rhit decided to jump into the education committee. Man, I'm so excited about
We'll
that.
have another new episode. Just
We'll
holler.
have to. We'll have to.
Holler.
So, brothers,
That's 3.
just like
Yeah.
we always. Yes, you'll be back on short. So, brothers, just like we said before, if you feel like you're out there and you feel like Freemasonry isn't what you were expecting, we're here for you. We know the Rhits of the world. We weren't lying when we said that we knew him.
We got
So
connections,
He's
man.
actually here. He's actually here. We are
In the flannel.
Yes.
You should have wore
Yes.
your gold
You
necklace.
can have
from
them
last
in
year.
your flannel.
Just,
So
I wear this everywhere. No big deal. Yeah.
your bling. So, anyways, just so that you know, we really do know people all over, and we know people around the country, and we care about what's going on with your Freemasonry. We want to build you up. We want to help you if we can. If we can't, we're going to pass you off to somebody smarter than us, like Rhit, or some of the brothers that are in the Grand Line now, or even just a brother in your local lodge that you hadn't come into contact with. That's what we're here for. We want to help you to enjoy Freemasonry to its fullest, like we do, because we love it. That's why we're doing what we do. That's why we get up every morning, because we love it.
Yeah. Well, Rhit,
Go
Dennis,
ahead, Harald.
Thank you. Thank you both very much for coming on here. We'll have to do this again, Rhit. This has been a
For
great
sure.
conversation.
Holla.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
In essence of Rhit being our unknown mentor, this is Dennis Yates signing off.